Welcome to the Mystica Essentials classes. We are running this for the Colorist, and this is sponsored by SGO. I really want you to, I hope you really have downloaded the Alpha version of Mistika Boutique. If not, well, I'm going to post a link to where you can download the software in the chat. Okay, so there we go. Also, in the last two emails that SGO sent, there's also media to follow the classes a little bit better. Okay, so we could actually learn step by step what we're doing here. This is on a Google Drive. I'm going to send it over to you. If you haven't downloaded today, maybe focus on the scene detect one and sound for today, because actually everything would be a bit much. So if you haven't downloaded it and maybe you have time today, download sound, GFX, and scene detect while we start with the presentation. Okay, to download the media, I'm gonna show it. I'm gonna paste the link. And obviously, please check the minimum requirements for macOS and Windows. I'm also going to send you the link for this. Whoa, wrong link there. It's for the minimum requirements.
No worries, I'll paste it.
I have it here.
Okay.
I think I have it here. Yes, I did have it ready. So for the minimum requirements for macOS and Mistika Boutique, you have them there. And these are most of the things that you will have to use to learn Mistika Boutique in these four classes. Okay. So what we're going to learn today is how we are going to configure Mistika for a Mistika project. The sample project that we are going to be working on is going to be 1920 by 1080 and 25 frames per second. Obviously, this was due to making a package of files that we could transmit easily to you guys, so you can download, and also to make it easier the flow of the classes. We're going to learn then how to launch Mistika, and we're going to see a general overview of the GUI. We're going to navigate around the media browser and understand the folder structure of a Mistika project. We'll then import a clip and understand the Mistika timespace or timeline, as you would see this in other systems. We will learn how different the timespace is in comparison to timelines, and obviously we will, little by little, as long as the classes evolve, get an understanding of how advantageous it could be. We will then import a video and a sound file, a video only file, and a sound and only file, because we will learn the differences between all of them and how the media is represented in the timespace. Also, we will import graphics and learn how to work with the alpha channels. Okay, see that when we import graphics, we don't need to define a way that the alpha channel is treated, but we will see that we need to use a node to read the alpha channel of the clip. We're going to learn also today the different clips that timespace can contain, meaning by this effects clips, group clips, time warp clips, and how we could do a freeze frame. Also, towards the end of the classes today, we're going to import a consolidated edit file where we are going to perform a scene detect. The reason behind this is because I really want you to practice a little bit during this week and try to concentrate everything you've learned today in the following days, so you can practice and maybe come up with a lot of questions for the next session next Friday. We're going to learn after the scene detect how to cut and join clips in the timeline. And we're going to add the color grade because as the majority, as we saw in the polls, are here colorist or people learning to become a colorist, we're going to have a brief introduction of the color tools. And then finally, we're going to render a small sequence so you could learn how the render panel works and basically maybe show off your Mystica skills after 1 hour, 32-hour class, okay? So let's crack on. Oh, yeah, sorry. This class will be recorded and it will be uploaded for you to view again later on. You can also find the Mystica training videos in the SGO YouTube channel, where you can find how-tos, very small specific videos. If you ever get stuck while you're practicing in the following days, you can actually type in how-tos of how to cut a clip, how to split a clip, how to import something. You would see very specific videos. And hope you enjoy, and let's start. Okay, so when you install Mystica, I'm going to assume you were able to install Mystica and activate the license correctly. It should be a normal procedure with just executing an installer and then activating the activation code that gets sent to your email by logging into your SGO account. So we're going to launch Mistika Boutique just by double-clicking the icon, just like any other software. And over here, we could see we have the auto login here. But in the auto login, actually, I don't want it to auto log in right now, because we could create a user if we wanted to. So if I want a new user and create a new user, or Paco, okay. I could, here we will learn that you could obviously create your own hotkeys if necessary, and also the different type of files, okay. So once you log in, you could create your own user. But before we enter Mystica, we're going to open the Mystica config tool. We're going to learn how we're going to configure our system to work properly in Mystica. So I'm going to open the config tool just by double clicking. And basically in Mystica, what you're going to be doing is setting up Mystica to work with very specific parameters. And these parameters are not going to be hardwired to the project, meaning that actually a project that you've designed to work initially at, for example, 25 frames per second, maybe in the future, you need to do a 24 frames per second version, and you would just need to change the frame rate. It's not going to be hardwired to the project. We will learn that as we go. So in this case, we could see that the Mystica config has a general tab. And inside the general tab, we could see standard presets. For today's session, we're going to work with those standard presets, okay, with a 1920 1080 standard preset. But if we wanted to create a new one specific for the work we're going to do, I could just create here new and say ICA Mistika Essential. And over here now, I've created a preset based on the 1920 by 1080 factory default that we had there, okay? You can't delete default factory default presets, but you can delete the custom ones we just created. We're going to keep it like this because that's how we want to have it. Over here in general, you'll be able to define how often does Mystica internally autosave the timespace or the environment you're working. This is important to know. In Mystica, you won't be saving the project. It will be saving only the timeline you're working. And somehow maybe similar to how maybe Avid would work, that you would you could save the bins separately from the project if you wanted to. You could also define how many auto versions are kept within the folder structure of Mystica. And then you would have the option of the warning days, the expire warning days of your license running out. You could define it from here as well. There are also advanced options, but for what we are talking in these essentials, we're not going to dive into those just yet. Okay. I see there's a question in the chat. Whoa. Okay. Sorry, Zach. Let's see if maybe in support someone could help you with that. So in file paths, so we were in general and now in file paths. In file paths, by default, when you install Mistika Boutique, the projects are stored in a user's SGO projects, okay? So if I go to projects here, where I have it actually saved, we can see here is where our projects are in Mistika. And this is important because Mistika projects have a very specific folder structure that every single project is going to have. You can change this if you wanted to and place it in some other part of your operative system or in your storage. Select real-time storage. This is for new media files, especially if you're using this with a deck and you're capturing media. That's normally what is necessary. Now we obviously used to working with tapeless footage, so we won't be using this as much. Then shared folder settings. This is when we have different systems using Mistika Boutique and different computers, and maybe you want to share the LUTs or you want to share some hotkeys or any other essential information that needs to be shared between two systems. That's where we will have it. Obviously, in some licenses of Mystica Ultima, you could create DCPs as well. So that is important for when you want to create DCPs. And then the path builder, which is something more critical for when we do heavy projects where we want to have a very specific folder structure of our renders. Okay, we will look into that maybe in some other moment. The key here would be the master formats, and in our master formats tab is where we define the render size of our final render here, or of our project. In this case, as we defined in the general tab, we're going for 1920 by 1080. The color space that the SDI, if we were using an SDI output video board, we would define this as 709. If we were doing any HDR, I would recommend putting 2020 in this case. Then the frame rate is going to be 24 frames per second. And if we, for example, for all our colleagues that work with drop frame time codes, you would have the option of defining the drop frame timecode over here just by toggling this, this button over here, okay? Regarding video board, you can work with Asia or Blackmagic video boards. And in this case, I have an auto-detect video board. I'm working with a mini monitor, 4K mini monitor, Blackmagic. Although I won't be showing you the output during the session, I'll be showing you internally how Mistika is showing the video output. Auto adjust resolution, we could choose here the video resolution of our video output, okay? And the video frame rate, which if I change it here, it's going to automatically change in the system. So obviously here, we're going to go 25 frames per second because the files that I've sent you are going to be conformed at 25 frames per second, okay? So then we're going to be progressive and internal video paths of how this is outputted. You can put 10-bit, 4:2, and depending on the video board, you could choose different and even larger qualities. Okay. Then regarding codecs, here we would have different reduce factors for our raw footage. We will look into this in other days today. Today we're going to be working with the files I sent you, and none of them are raw. And obviously here you could define better performance of your settings for a better performance of Mistika inside your computer. Then regarding interface, you can define here if you're going to work with high dynamic range, with high resolution or a low resolution. In this case, I'm going to leave it in high, and that's how we're going to work. And obviously, for those that have 2 monitors, I would really recommend using 2 monitors for this. For my studio in Madrid, I do have 2 monitors, and what we are seeing here is my home setup. In this home setup, I only have 1 monitor and 1 video output monitor, which is an ISO monitor. Okay. Then obviously we have some GUI default fonts and information. Tangent, you can connect to tangent devices here. For the purpose of these classes, I'm going to show you how to use Mistika with the mouse, but you can connect any tangent surfaces that you want, and you will define them from here, okay? Then you can also connect a precision panel, and if you have a precision panel, you can take advantage of all that information there. I'm going to go back to general.
We have a question regarding performance options tab. Alexander is asking if you can explain that, please.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Performance options tab. Yeah, you do have performance options here. You can define how the number of frames, of video frames, are going to be buffered in your video board. You can define how much memory you are dedicating to cache recently accessed images. You can also define how many in and output threads you use to play clips. I think there is a dedicated video in the YouTube channel, in SGO's YouTube channel, where this performance options tab is explained in an hour-long video. Is that correct, Eva?
I will double check it. I know that you made many videos. So.
Oh no, I think it's one from actually the might have been.
It's not yours. That's odd. Yeah, then I will find it right away.
Yeah. So that is the case. I hope I answered the question there a little bit. Okay, so what I'm going to do is, well, in general, we created the standard preset with the master formats of 1920 by 1080, okay, and 25 frames per second. And that's how we're going to work. I'm going to press OK. And I'm going to launch Mistika Boutique. I just double click. And well, I could use the user I just created. Auto login is now disabled, but if you want to have an auto login of 5 seconds or 10 seconds, you can define it from here, and it will automatically log you into the software. Okay, in this case, just by clicking on auto login, it will automatically connect and start Mistika. Okay, so when you start Mistika for the first time, you might get the SGO Mistika license agreement. You just click don't ask me again. Well, if you don't want to be asked again, and then just accept. Okay, so we're going to, once we open Mistika for the first time, what we see here is actually the timeline, and then we could see a little bit of our edit panel over here. But the first thing that we're going to have a look at is our projects menu. And in our projects menu, we can see the different projects that we have here and the project that I'm going to create for today's session. To do that, I'm going to click on New Project. Okay, and we can see that it says 1920 by 1080 at 25 frames per second. And I'm going to press OK. And I'm going to enter the name, and it's going to be ICA Mistika Essentials. And I'm going to press OK. So I'll press OK, and immediately you can see that the Media Manager is opened, or what some Mystica users would name as the browser. We would normally call it the browser, and normally when you communicate with other Mystica users, you would just define this as the browser. You can see here we have a folder tree, and this folder tree, we are seeing everything that is dropping from ICA Mistika Essentials, which is the name of the project that I just set. And you can see on top the address of where this folder is. Mystica works with a specific folder structure. If any of these folders are missing, Mystica is not going to recognize that folder structure as a Mystica project. And generally, what happens is most of these folders are still there because of legacy things of how previous projects worked in the past in Mystica. So backup, external media, import and output are folders that were dedicated to a very specific task within the software. The most of our work is going to happen in data, and everything that we're going to do, like timelines or anything that we will use, will be shown in here. It's where in other softwares, you would say you would create your bins, or where you would have your timeline information or your clips, okay? So we have a folder tree. And in this folder tree, we can navigate, obviously, to our different storage in our computer, okay? In this case, if you've downloaded the media, I created an ICA Mistika Essentials download with the media that we are going to be working on with today. You're going to have a reference. I'm going to, for a second, not to maximize this window now, but you're going to find a 00 reference with an H.264 inside with the video clip that we're going to be onlining in these 4 sessions, okay, of essential classes. We're also going to find original camera files, all right, with several files, okay. And if you wanted to use any of these in Mystica right now, you can see it. It's shown in the source monitor down here at the bottom. And if you wanted to import them, you just have to drag and drop it inside. And Mystica is going to ask you if you want to import this as progressive or as interlaced. Okay. Now that I have this in my browser, I can open second view of the media files. And over here, I can actually, if I hit the home icon, I could go to my data folder in my project, okay? In this data folder of my project, you can see I have a .lnk. This .lnk is exactly the link we just created of the MP4 I just dragged and dropped into my timeline, okay? Apart from these original camera negatives, we also have some sound. Okay, I'm also going to drop this here. Okay, and it's asking me, do you want to link the audio? And I say yes. And you can see automatically it will create a .lnk file again that is referencing the WAV file that I've just dropped into the timeline. Okay, so that we have it there. If I wanted to, I could also create a new folder and say, okay, sound, and then just cut and paste there and move it if wanted to. Okay, so now I have a sound folder inside my Mistika folder structure. Is there any questions or anything you want to go? Okay, now I can see that Jeff Sosa is a user, Mistika Boutique user. I think he's been using it for almost a year now or more. And he's done really great work. Okay, so I'm gonna go back to show you.
We have one question.
Awesome, great.
When using two monitors, I don't get the browser, says Ben.
When using two monitors,
he doesn't get the browser. Do you know like a simple solution to that? Ben, you can explain a little bit more what you don't see. Jeff says
yeah.
press F2.
Yes, okay, the media browser, try, okay, I'm going to close this for a second. Try clicking on media here and see if it pops up. It should pop up in, yeah, it should pop up in your left monitor.
He says that it highlights green but doesn't pop up.
Okay, I think that would be a case for maybe support to have a look at it. Okay, and maybe give some guidance there. Yeah. Okay.
Also, we have some other questions if you want to stop now to answer those. So we have one. Cool. Does Mistika track the location of these links when you move them around inside the file system? Or did you just make that audio clip go offline in your project? That's a question from Adam.
You would be able to relink the media in the timelines when you move around things in your storage. Okay, so we will actually learn that in these lessons, in these following lessons. Brendan Gibbons. Oh, Brendan was a colleague of mine at Sky Television.
Nice.
I'm glad he's in here also.
And you're skipping a question, Paco.
Oh, did I skip a question? Sorry.
Yes. Alexander is asking if we can drag and drop inside Media Manager.
Can we drag and drop inside? No, not right now. As you can see there, I'm already showing it to you. It doesn't let you. Oh, but it does. If you have Shift hold, it will move it. Yeah. So yes, if you have Shift, it will let you move a file inside the Media Manager. Okay. So okay. That is interesting.
Now you can move on to your friend.
So Brandon was asking if we import multiple folders in a file directly into the data folder and keep the folder structure from the original source location. Yes, definitely. So actually what I'm going to do here first is in this folder that I called sound, I'm going to delete it. Okay. Links to the media, that's what I'm going to delete, and I'm going to delete the sound folder. Obviously, Mistika double checks that is the case. And over here, I'm going to delete anything that I had on the timeline, just in case so you guys can see. So what actually we are going to look at right now is that in my browser right now, I'm just going to right click and say import. And over here, I could say import all media. And when I go to import all media, Mistika now is going to ask me, what path in my data folder do you want to save this in? And I'm going to say, oh, I want to save this in my Mistika Essentials folder. Okay. How do I want that clip name to be generated? And I'm going to say, well, just using the source file name. And what tape name? This is important for when you are conforming any media or any EDL or XML. Okay. And here are the important question is if I want to, in case we are using, in this case, photographs maybe, and they all come in consecutive numbers, you have the option of asking Mistika to link all those images as single images. In this case, we don't have those in this particular project. And over here, we are going to have the option of replicating the folder tree. And in replicating the folder tree, it will exactly replicate what we were seeing before. So if I press import, First, I'm going to explain that if you press import and load, it will load this information in the timeline. Just to keep this more orderly, I'm going to press import and then load individual files into my timeline. Okay, so I'm going to press import there. It's going to be, it will be creating the clips, and you can see there now it created a Mistika Essentials folder. And in this Mistika Essentials folder, we have exactly all the folders of the folder structure of the media I sent you for this. And we could see exactly the same folder structure that we were looking at. Just to finish what I was explaining of this folder structure, I really liked Brendan's suggestion. It really tied into what I was going to explain now. We're going to see that we also have some GFX files with a bug that we're going to use to apply it on top of our images, and also some other icons and information that we're going to be working on during these 4 weeks. And then the file of scene detect that we're going to finish our session this week today. Any questions now that I've done a quick
I think we have already another one from Adam in the chat. So he's asking whether these are the standard Windows Ink files. If so, does this mean we can use other tools, scripts, etc. to import media and create bin structures within Mystika from outside Mystika?
I'm not so sure. I'm trying to say yes, but I'm not so sure. I need to double check that with the developers, but I'm not completely sure. I don't dare to say yes that you can, but I've seen people creating scripts from Python to create their own Mistika timelines. Yes, I've seen that. There are some engineers that have done that and have tied in Mystikas with all their Python infrastructure and media management with Python tools. So that has happened. Okay.
We can write this question down, and we'll have it. We'll have the answer for the next week.
Yeah.
Perfect. So Matej is asking if we can please show again how did you create this folder structure, just in 3 seconds, because everything froze for him.
That's fine.
So
That's
so
fine.
maybe,
Actually, I'm going to take advantage to show something else in the Mystika browser. What we could see here, you could see here that we have path bookmarks. What are these path bookmarks? Well, actually, what I can do is, as we're going to use a lot the ICA Mistika Essentials folder structure that I created for you, that's a package of media that I've sent you, I'm gonna drop it on my path bookmarks. So now if I go to maybe another part of my drive here, okay, and I got completely lost, okay, now I'm in SGL data, okay, but I want to go back to my Mistika Essentials, I could just double click here and automatically go to that path, okay? So you could save there as many paths as you want. So for example, here I can actually drag and drop my media. So for other projects that I work on, I have a media folder, okay? And even so, if you wanted to, well, maybe you would want to actually go to the projects here and actually create another path bookmark to your projects, and you could see all the project folder structures that we're working on. So going back to the Mistika Essentials one over here, I'm just going to go one level up. And just to show what we did to import all the media, I just right-clicked, press import, and pressed all media. In the case that you know that you have a folder with movies and sequences and you only want to import movies, or you only want to import the sequences, you would have the option to basically ignore one or the other, okay? Maybe a case where this could happen is that you have ARX files and also some MOV files, proxy MOV files, and you just want to use the proxy MOV files, you just ask Mistika to import the movie files. If you want to import the sequences, you will just import all sequences, okay? And then in import all media, it will just import everything. We're going to click here. And any of the three options would show the same import options. And to import and replicate the folder tree, we would choose here the button replicate folder tree. Okay, and then either or we would import and load, or any of the two to import our media. Okay. Hope that answered the question. Awesome, great. So let's carry on. Let's go to one of the most interesting parts in Mystika, and something that always makes people, I'm going to say, well, intrigued on how it works. We're going to have a look at the timeline now. For that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit home here in one of my browsers. And actually what I'm going to do is choose a video file here. Okay, let's choose this one, and I'm going to drop it in here. First important thing here to look at is obviously that in Mystika, we have this infinite canvas, this infinite timeline. If you press the overview button here, you actually see a miniature of this time space. You have the options here of zooming in or out. Okay, we're zooming out, we're zooming in. And you also have the option of selecting something, and pressing the button here will just zoom into the selection and actually just adjust the zoom factor to the clip that you just had selected here. Okay, so what we will see now is what is this inside the time space. And this is basically a clip that has video and audio. Why do I know that? It's because the dark strip of this clip is the video, and the light green strip here is the audio over here. What I'm going to do now is actually show you what audio only clip looks like, a video only clip looks like. So I'm going to drag and drop this one in here. Oops, oh no, I was wrong. I thought it was video only. Let me just double check. I believe the scene detect one I had was video only. There we go. Okay. A video only clip will look exactly like this. It wouldn't have the audio strip there to show. And now I'm going to show just a sound clip only. I'm going to drag and drop it here. And you can see now that there's a color. There's a color information to tell you what type of clip you're working with. In this case, it's a clip that has video and audio, one that has video only, and one that has only sound. And this is going to be important because if I go to the attributes panel here, in the setup panels here, I'm going to show you how the sound is going to be represented and how the videos are going to be represented in the clips. Okay. For example, I could say for audio icons, show a strip of icons forming a waveform, and I click and we could see a colored waveform here. The strip. I generally don't use this. I actually just leave it on, or on only for the clip's active frame. This is the active frame, which we are going to learn now what it is in a few seconds. And the same thing with videos. Here you have the option of showing the first and last frame, or a strip of icons, and you could see a whole strip of everything. In this case, generally what I do is I only have the active frame. And what is the active frame? Well, the active frame is this frame over here that you can see in audio clips and video clips. And actually, we could move that active frame at any moment with the right button of our mouse. I do recommend, something I've forgot, is to use 3-button mouse in Mistika. You're going to take advantage of the right button in Mistika all the time, because you're going to be able to move around. I'm moving here around just with the right button, okay? I can move around my time space. And I can also move that active frame just by moving that active frame. And as we're going to see later on today, we're going to be able to do edit commands with the active frame there. But I'm just going to leave that there for a second. So you can see there how a clip is shown and different things. You might be wondering, what is this flow monitor over here? And this is what Mistika calls the flow monitor. It's going to be useful when we have large stacks of node effects over node effects and over node effects. In this case, I normally don't use it, so I turn it off. One thing I did forget is for those that don't have video output right now, if you go to the record monitor, if you click on the record monitor and press menu, and you have live video activated, if you don't have a video board, if you have it deselected, it will be showing what you're seeing here inside the record monitor, inside the GUI, okay? For those that do have a video board, you can leave it in live video, and that's going to be shown in your video board. For the case of these lessons, I'm going to show it in the GUI so you can see exactly what I'm doing. Okay, then something important of how the time space behaves is these edit constraints. And right now, what I'm going to show you is how I normally work. And how I normally work is that right now, there's a lot of freedom here, and I can move my clip around everywhere. And generally, I don't do that. I really constrain the movement in X. So now I can only move this in Y. Okay, that doesn't mean that I can't move in X in any moment, but to kind of disable that constraint, I just have to press Control. And once I press Control, I can move around freely. But when I'm not pressing Control, I just go up and down. The reason for this, the reason why I have constraint X on, is because we work with frame accurate EDLs and stories that have very specific edits, and I really don't want to be fooling around with the position of my clips and the time codes of the clips. So I always leave them, at least in the horizontal axis, completely constrained. Okay, so that is important to know.
Paco, can I interrupt you just a second? Actually, Daniel reminded me of a very good point that we didn't cover at the beginning. And he's asking about the certificate of ICA. So will they need to pass an exam at the end, or is it just, you know, being at the sessions? What do you want them to complete to do the certificate? Okay, so basically we will hopefully, with the media that I've sent you, you'll be able to follow and complete the online that you've done. And I guess that would be the most important thing to basically do to get the certificate. That's actually what would be my goal. I would love for you guys to play with that media and actually end up doing your first online color grade in Mistika with graphics and stabilizations and everything that we're going to be learning within these 4 weeks. That makes sense. Thank you. Sorry. Lyman is asking if there's going to be a recording. Yes, there is going to be a recording of this, so you can follow everything and follow step by step what I'm doing. If I'm going too fast, please let me know, and I'll go slightly slower.
Okay, so in this setup tab over here, what I'll be showing you is basically what you'll be able to do is different options of viewing of how you want to view the timeline or timespace here. Right now I have show grid. In this case, some operators don't want the grid, so they just can see the tracks. Some have rulers over here where you could actually see precisely where in and out points are, okay, and kind of have an idea. I don't use them as much, so I get rid of them, okay. I'll show you later how to add in and out, but as you could imagine, just by pressing in and I and O, you would be adding in and out points. Obviously, we have here the timeline save, autosave. If this is not activated, it won't be autosaving, so that is important. And the other things that that, in my opinion, are important here for now is anything that is interface related, like, for example, the text opacity of some of the files, if you want to configure them to make them look easier, or if you want to change saturation of the elements here. Normally, I have them to the default, and that's it. Also, something important that you might be interested in is in actually seeing volume meters. And actually here, I'm going to press 2. So you can see that right now, to the left of our timeline, to the right of our timeline, sorry, the other left, we have now volume meters. And actually, you can see how they are showing the volume levels of this clip. Okay. So, as well as we can constrain the movement of our clips inside Mistika, we can also constrain the movement of the timeline itself. So over here, if I constrain X and Y, right now, I wouldn't be able of moving around. This is not necessarily in the setup panel. This is just GUI behavior that we could do. No matter what I try to do, I won't be able to move anything. So generally, I have them disactivated, but I've seen some operators that really have the Y lock enabled, so Mistika doesn't dance around and jump around all the time, and they would just have the X-axis as active. Okay. So when we see a clip in Mistika, what information do we have here right now? So I'm going to select this. And if we go to the attributes panel here, we can actually see the information of this clip. Okay, we can see the name. We can see the position in the timeline right now that, for example, here I have to go to setup, and in setup over here, I have to go to show timecode. Okay, I thought that I could see the timecode there in front, on top of the red line. So let's go back to the attributes. So I select the attribute, the clip here, and we can see the attributes, where it's sitting in the timeline. If there is any trimming info in the clip, we can see that actually there's nothing trimmed right now. We have the full clip inside the timeline. But if I drag this, we could see there actually where I'm suddenly trimming 7 seconds from the head, and I can also trim now a lot of 10 seconds from the tail. Okay, if I even reset this if I wanted to, we would recover all the trim and head information from the attributes panel. But it's not the only way we could do this, obviously. We could do this in Mistika by using the right button over here. And just to maybe quickly do an edit here, I'm going to go to the very end, to the tail of my clip with the right button of my mouse. What this is doing, what this is doing is moving the active frame to the very end. And now I want to trim back. I just have to press with the right and the left button of the mouse and bring it down. And you can see there now, I've just trimmed the tail. And then I could do the same thing with the tail, with the head if I wanted to. Okay, so that is one way of trimming in Mistika. Once you practice and work with it, you'll get used to it, and actually it will be a very fast and quick way of moving around in Mistika. Okay, so what time is it? It's going to be almost an hour. Good. So one thing that you might be wondering is, okay, we have a video and audio clip, video only, and a sound clip here. So what if I don't want to use the sound in this clip? What do I have to do? Well, we're going to go to the edit panel, and we have here our commands, our command groups over here. And these command groups is where, for example, here I have the audio video break or audio video combine. So if I press audio video break, now we can see there that now we've split the audio and the video, and now I can move freely my video and move freely the sound if I consider this necessary. Okay, so I'm going to get rid of the sound there if I wanted to. Also, you have other options, like, for example, if you're working with audio and you want to break the audio, you could actually break the channels of your audio clips, okay? Or you can select them and combine them back again. Similar with the audio and video, you could recombine them again here. So why is it important that we learn what we could do with the active frame? Because with the active frame, we're going to be doing many operations in Mistika. Like, for example, once you, for example, here in active, in the edit panel, you have here, you can see like it looks like you have 3 clips selected. This means that any operation that you do with a clip selected is going to be done with a single clip selected. It's going to be done on the active frame. So maybe here I could even split something if I wanted to, and I will do it on the active frame. If I wanted to do this with my playhead, I would use the red icon here, the icon with the red line, and I press split, and it will cut that down. So as you can see, as soon as I cut my clips again, I see now that that there is a new active frame on each of the new clips, okay? But we've learned already that we have video clips, video and audio clips, and sound-only clips. Let's learn how we could do time warp, for example, or a group. And in this case, if I press G, or you go here to the commands and press group, you can see that now that clip now has a different color. And if I go to the attributes panel, we can see here that actually some of the information that I had before, it's not available there anymore. What has happened? So just like in other softwares, you would have compound clips. This would be like a compound clip in other softwares. But the advantage that you have here, in a sense, is also that you could actually, you are in the same timeline, I have my Y lock here, and you can move here. And over here, you'll be able to apply effects if you wanted to, in this case, color grade, and maybe just start changing something. And this would be shown navigating up, okay? Just here in the navigation. If you want to navigate here with a hotkey, you just have to press event page, or if you want to go up, re-page, okay? So reverse page, okay? So that's how you would be doing it. And now this is a group, okay? and it's important that we know that this is a group. I'm going to actually break this group and group it, and we could see here now that we see the color information now. I'm going to change this, and actually what I'm going to do here now is I'm going to press time warp. And you can see that nothing is happening there right now, and it's because first I have to create a group and then time warp the clip. Why? Because Mystica defines, I'm going to do this again, okay? You can define with the edit here that we have, okay? If we see this more accurately in attributes, okay, if I select the clip, I've got the head here and my tail here, okay? All right, and you can see the information here, 44 seconds, 12 frames, and the end, 52 seconds, 14 frames. Those are going to be the in and outs of these clip. But if I want to time warp this, for example, and maybe make this twice the size or half speed, actually, I will group it and time warp here. And over here, I'll have the option of get duration. And this right now is on float, but you could see this in timecode in the calculator, and multiply this by 2 if I wanted to. Okay. And then over here, say saturation. And now you can see there, that clip, it says it's 50%. This is important because you're going to see a lot of time warps in the exercise that I've given you when we conform it in the next classes for the next session, okay? And basically what that time warp is exactly a group. Inside the time warp, we just have the clip with the defined input and output that we defined before. And actually, if we wanted to, I can move the active frame to the very end, press with the right button and the left button of the mouse, and actually extend this. And this is going to change the time warp now, but it's only going to change it when I navigate out. To navigate out, I press here or reverse page. As soon as that happens, Mystica says, wait a second, the group, the size of the group has changed. Do you want to reset the time warp and start from 0, or do you want to adjust the curve? I'm going to say adjust the curve. And now this will adjust the curve. It's still 50%, okay? But obviously it has, sorry, if we go to the record monitor here, so you can see it. Now it's playing, and it's actually half the speed of what was recorded. Okay, so I hope that makes sense. If not, obviously we will come back to it later. Are there any questions? Let me check.
I think so far not, but maybe now we'll start to drop the questions.
Awesome, great.
You can drink some water now if you want to.
Yeah. Okay, so we've seen what we can do here right now.
We have one question from Marcel. Can you do time warp with mouse commands? Do you know that?
With mouse commands, with gestures, yes, you can do time warp with gestures. We would actually see that in another session, but just to show this quickly, you can. So for example, here, I could actually select a clip here, and I'm going to draw, actually here something quite cool here in Mystica is actually here notes. I'm going to create, and I'm going to draw something like this with the left button of my mouse selected, okay? So I have the clip selected, and I drew that, and it makes a group. And if I do it the other way around, it makes a time warp. Now, with the active frame, this becomes a flexible clip, okay? So let me actually, I'm going to do this again. Okay, guys, so we all have it clear. And actually, just to understand really the philosophy of the time warp in Mistika. Okay. So middle button of the mouse, and I draw this kind of circle here. And I'm going to show you also the other way around. Sorry. I just hit play accidentally. And again, I select it and actually do this the other way around. Done it slowly, maybe too slow, so Mistika didn't recognize it. Okay, now it's not. Sorry, guys. You can do it with that. And what I mean by the time warp being flexible here is that, for example, when we have a clip and we've run out of frames here, for example, we get, you can see that orange highlight there. So actually over here, if I want to get this off the show over trim. In this case, you can also see the over trim here. It gets darker. All this means it's a frozen frame. It's the last clip is frozen. If I actually do it with this clip over here, and if I group it, okay, we've defined an edit. I group this. And I extend this right now, we could see that all this information here means that it's frozen, okay? But if I actually clone this, sorry. I'm gonna clone this and open this group. And in this group now, what I'm going to do is actually convert this in a time warp. And now this is flexible. You could see now that my last frame is actually still moving. So over here, it is moving. And if I press H and hide this, the bottom one is still freezing, okay? So that is how you could see a clip that is trimmed or not trimmed, and the differences between a clip that is trimmed or not, okay? Over trimmed or not, okay? I'm going to unhide this. You can hide clips with H, and you can see here, you can see the attributes here, H. You could also lock the position here, all right? And that would lock the position of the clip, and you wouldn't be able to move it around. Okay, so now we've seen what groups and time warps are.
I have also shared an image that we have with all Mistika gestures, if you guys
awesome.
want to download it. So
yeah,
it's in the
great.
chat. And we also have another question coming from Gabriel. How does the position of the clips on the timeline affect them? Is there any hierarchy as if they were layers? On the timeline itself?
That's a great question. Yeah, we're going to see that with the clips, there's a hierarchy of the top clip is going to be visible, okay? Over here now, the time warp is obviously visible right now. And actually, we're going to get to a point where in the bottom one, it's frozen and we're not going to be able to see it. It should be around here, okay? If I hide this now, okay, but show it, we could see that now we are seeing the frozen clip at the bottom, okay? But then we will see when we apply effects and stuff like that, how we would interact with the two clips, okay? So they're not necessarily layers because the nodes later on are going to help us to interact with the clips. But the top one is going to have a priority when there's no effects involved, okay? So we've seen what a group is. We've seen how we can trim. We've seen what a time warp is, but let's see how can we freeze a frame. Well, actually, it's once we do it, you're gonna actually get it a lot better. Let's imagine that I'm seeing this clip over here, and I want to freeze the moment that our cook here just is dropping the water there. So if you double click, you would see this in large screen. Okay. This is if you are in the GUI monitor, if you're playing this in the GUI. Okay, so just the moment that she drops the water there in the blender. And what I'm going to do is actually here split with the red icon activated here. This is important. Okay, I'm going to split this, move one frame with the arrows, the cursor arrows, and split again. Okay, I'm going to get rid of both ends. And now I'm going to group this frame. And once I group this frame and drag with the right and the left button of the mouse pushed down, I have frozen that frame from one end and the other end. And you would see Mistika Ops do this really quickly, not only with gestures, but automatically just go and drag and drop something. Well, I broke the group there. Just create the group, press G, create the group, and then drag the tail. Normally it's the tail. I've seen Mistika Ops drag this on. Okay, it is important. We would actually learn this when we play with graphics, and actually this is important for the next thing that I want to explain, and it's how we are going to work with clips that have alpha and basically with GFX. So I'm going to go back to my media, and in my media now, I'm going to press the home button, and I'm going to navigate to the GFX folder. And in the GFX folder, I'm actually going to go for here the DAA Nutseed milk title. And you can see in the browser over here, in the source monitor over here, that is just a white solid. It looks like it's just a white solid. Just going to drag and drop it over here. And you can see it's very small. It's just one frame. And as we've learned, if I drag with the right and the left button activated, I could extend that clip. But now that I have it here, and let's say I want to specifically just put 10 seconds, make this 10 seconds long, I could go to the calculator here and actually say 10, 0, 0. Okay, and press the button here, set position. Sorry, not set position, sorry. Set duration, okay? And now the duration of this file is 10 seconds, okay? How can I know that? Well, there's several things. We can actually add edit marks, and we could see here with the edit marks here, the duration of that. I also have play marks. This is an interesting concept in Mistika. I'm going to get rid of the edit marks by pressing here or pressing Shift-I and Shift-O. I also have play marks here, which is start and end. And if I press these two, it will actually adjust to the selected clip. And we can see at the top the duration of that. Or to get rid of the play marks, we press Shift-S and Shift-E. Or we could here select the clip and ask here, actually going to reset this, press the button, get duration, and we could automatically see the duration of a clip there if we wanted to. Okay, so we have the edit command here, obviously is just one click away of most of the operations that we wanna do. Okay, but going back to the alpha channel, if I double click here, we go into our visual editor. And in our visual editor, what we see here is actually every single clip will have different options, okay? if it had a different size. In this case, for example, this is a 4K clip, but obviously we've the option that we have by default in Mystica is that we pad to fit this clip. What we're not seeing here right now is actually we're just seeing a white solid, but in our visual editor over here, we have the chance here to choose what channels we can see. And in this case, I'm going to choose to see the alpha channel. Okay. And now here in the alpha channel, we could see that obviously there is an alpha channel and it's actually the text of our file. I'm going to show this again, so it's very clear. To enter in the visual editor in Mystica, you just have to double click on a clip, okay? In this case, this is a solid. And over here, we have the parameters panel. We also have two menus, one at the left with, in this case, shapes. And generally, we will always have the shapes options here. And then we will have different options in the visual editor here that we're going to see in a second. Our strip of clips here, where we can go to the next clip, to the previous clip, or go to the next clip. We can also see presets. We will look into that in following lessons, okay? And basically see also scopes if we wanted to, okay? And for example, here now, if I, whoops, I chose histogram, and actually I really like RGB overlap. And over here at the bottom in this bar here, just on top of our parameters panel, we have the option of seeing the 3 channels of RGB. And you can see here, if you leave the mouse there enough time, you would actually see the hotkeys to actually view every one of those options. And if I go here to alpha, we would see the alpha, or we could also see RGB multiplied by the alpha. And basically in this case, it's the same. So we didn't have to ask Mystica to pre-multiply this, or we didn't have to ask Mystica to actually do anything over here with the alpha channel. What do we do when we work with a graphic or a clip with an alpha channel? And actually, what I'm going to do here first is actually I'm going to get rid of this and actually bring back a clip. Let's do this one here, okay. I just drag and drop it here. And I'm going to say, actually, we have this duration, and I'm going to say I want this to have the same duration. So I press set duration, so it's 10 seconds now. And over here, I'm going to select these two, and I want to pack them. I want to align them here. So I can press align, and that will align the clips in the same horizontal position, okay? This is important, especially when you're doing effects, okay? If I wanted to, I could obviously just ask Mystica to align them the other way around. So I select these two and align to the left, and it would align them to the left. So we have a clip that has an alpha channel. I'm just going to put this on top. How do we work in Mystica with a clip that has an alpha channel? Well, we need to apply an effect. And in this case, for example, what we could do is I can apply a Comp3D effect, okay? And in this Comp3D effect, I drag and drop it, and then you can see here right now that what I have is I'm applying a Comp3D effect that has a first input and a second input. We could see it here. This would be our tree evaluation in our visual editor. Okay, in our visual editor right now, I'm going to get rid of the storyboard because it isn't necessary for what we're doing here. So we need a Comp3D where we define how the alpha channel interacts with our images. Okay, so that's when this is important. If, for example, I actually came in here, sorry, and actually said, used an effect that is clear alpha. Now, actually, the alpha of this, it doesn't have any, so the comp3D obviously can't comp anything here. So actually, because that is the node I've just applied. Also, another way of viewing this in Mystica, sorry, I just double clicked. I didn't want to double click, sorry guys. Seeing the alpha channel here. Another way of viewing this in Mystica is via the node graph. And here in this node graph, we could see, and this might be a slightly better representation of what we're doing here right now. We can see that the first input of the comp3D is the image, and the second input of the comp3D is our clip here. Why is this important? Well, I really wanted to show you how alpha channels need to be used in Mystica, because when we work with alpha channels, we're going to have to apply an effect in Mystica to work with it, okay? In any way or form. So maybe even if we use it as an alpha input for one of our color grades, which we would see in the future, we would ask Mystica to use it in one of the node effects. Meaning that when we import it inside our project, we don't need to ask to Mystica to interpret it in any shape or form. We would be later on able to use that alpha as we please, any way we want, okay? So we could see this here in two different modes. With the node tree here, that obviously I could actually change the order if I wanted to, and if I select the X here and delete those inputs, and you could see these would be automatically, it's being updated in the timeline, okay? Anyway, I think we've seen enough of these clips and how the Mystica timeline works and behaves. I'm going to sum it up quickly and see if there is any questions, because I know that the timeline is actually maybe one of the most tricky things the first time you play with Mystica, and I really want you to get a full understanding of how it is. Remember that in setup, you constrain the movement of the clips, okay? In this case, it's an X. If I constrained X and Y, I wouldn't be able of moving it around unless I press Control. So when I press Control, I'll be able to move freely. In this case, obviously, I don't want to really constrain all my movements. I just want to constrain the X movement. And what I did, as I explained earlier, it's because we work with very accurate and specific time codes, and I don't want to change that. Then, if we want to move around the timeline, we could move with the right button of the mouse, okay? And you would easily, quickly learn to do that and move freely. You also have the overview, okay? And in the overview, actually, you can choose where to go. Remember, you also have the zoom factors over here, and also the track zoom size, okay, where we could change the track zoom factor and move around here. You can also select a clip and adjust the zoom factor to the size of a clip, okay, and zoom out. And obviously, you could also constrain the movement of the timeline if you just want to move in Y, or if you just want to move in X, or if you just want to move in Y. Maybe you're doing a very large stack of effects and you just want to move in Y. It's certainly a possibility. Any things that you want to change regarding the interface, remember that you could do it here with text saturation or text shadows if you want to add a little bit of shadow onto the text, or in some, I don't remember what high text does there, actually. Have to double check. So you can see, I don't know everything in Mystica. If you want to change the background luma, I leave it at 8 or 6. But normally I have it at 8. If you want to change the saturation of the colors here. So basically, anything that is related to how Mystica behaves and how the interface behaves, it's going to be here. But I think we've seen enough of all the different things that we could do in the timeline. Let's see if we have any other questions and then jump into the more interesting things for people that want to do color. Okay.
Great. So first we have a comment from Rakesh saying that, he would like to see more compositing info down the line, since that is becoming a more significant part of his postwork. So maybe that's something you can have in mind for the following sessions.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
And we also have a question from Eric. How do you trim the clips on the timeline using a tablet, since you don't have the left and right mouse buttons?
That's a great question. You can define, actually, what I'm going to do is for the next lesson, I will actually get the tablet out and configure it. But normally what you could do is you could define one of the buttons of the pen to behave as the right button, and you press down the pen. The press down would be the left button, obviously, and one of the buttons to become the right button. And then that will behave like the right button, okay? That would be it. Perfect. So silly questions, there are no silly questions here. Toggling volume bars, please. Okay, yeah, let's do that again. So remember, in the setup of our attributes over here, we have the option of showing the number of volume meters here to show, and we have 0 to 4, and we could have up to 16 if we wanted to. Okay, in this case, for what I've prepared for you guys, it's just going to be 2. Okay, so you just need to do 2. I hope that answers the question. Okay, great. Jeff, thanks for helping us out there, answering the question. And so let's see a little bit more the visual editor. Okay, I'm just going to get rid of everything. Also, I could have right-clicked on the timeline. Again, something I forgot to show is that I'm so used to doing the commands already with hotkeys that I didn't show you that you have the possibility of right-clicking over the clips and pressing group, time warp, reverse, anything, and you could actually would be able to see the hotkey related to those actions. And you could also get position, saturation, and everything. I really should have showed you this at the beginning because obviously I'm already used to the hotkeys and we forgot. But remember, you always have now the right button in Mystica to do this. In this case, what I'm going to do is a new timeline. I'm just going to open a new timeline. Mystica is going to ask me if I want to save this. In this case, I don't consider this as necessary. So I won't save this one right now. Okay. So
before you proceed, maybe we can just have a look at the chat again, because we have Daniel being very impatient about the color. I'm not sure if you're planning to touch color tools in this session.
Yes, we're going to see briefly the color tools in today's session, and in the following sessions we are going to have a further look on the color science as well. Okay. Absolutely.
Perfect. Okay. And we have Matej asking if you use your own set of hotkeys or do you use a default set?
That's a great question. And one of the things of being a Mystica, product specialist and demo artist, and basically having the opportunity of showcasing Mystica all over the world, has been that I had to get used to the default ones. But you could you could build your own hotkeys. In the login panel, actually, you could save there exactly the hotkeys that you want, okay? And you'll be able to open them and design your own hotkeys that you want. I do admit that I should have done my own, but I never really did, because the next time I would go to teach someone in Mistika or wherever for the first time, I didn't know what hotkeys they would expect. So I ended up always using the default ones. And this has been like this for me for 10, 12 years.
Paco, you're not trying to say that you don't like the default set of hotkeys, right?
No, not at all, not at all. I'm too used to them. I really work really quick and fast. I also use the gestures a lot. I really use the gestures a lot. And I also see Wilfred is asking if HDR will be featured here. We could definitely do something about HDR and show a little bit of HDR grading here if you want to. It wasn't in the plan, but I could really add a little bit of that for that. What I really want to focus on is you guys being able of finishing a whole edit inside Mistika, color grading it, finishing it, adding titles, adding graphics, and that's really what I would want to get out of this. But I will show you as well HDR maybe in the last day if you want to. Okay.
Great, awesome. Paco, we have 30 minutes left, so.
Awesome. So, well, let's go to the cool, interesting part. Okay. Okay, so what I'm going to do, just to make it easier for you guys, in the media I've sent you, I've sent a scene detect clip over here, okay? And what I'm going to do is drag and drop this into the timeline. And actually what I'm going to do is over here, I'm going to change my real TC. So if I want to say I'm going to start in hour 1 and press enter. And over here, if I want to say I want my clip to be in hour 1, I would just go into ask Mistika to actually put here hour 1 and say that, sorry, my bad, press the wrong button. Use and set position. Oops, it did with a red line. If I select the clip selection, it will move the clip selection there. So actually you can see here that anything that is active is where the calculator is going to apply the effect on. Okay, so I'm going to double click here. And as soon as you double click in a clip in the timeline, it automatically comes to the visual editor. For those that have 2 monitors, that you would automatically see it in the second monitor. So although double clicking does activate the visual editor, it won't, you won't see actually something as, I'm going to say dramatic as for those that have a single monitor. Okay, and in a single monitor, the visual editor will come back. If you want to get out of the visual editor, you can press escape, or you can press the button here back. So every single clip in Mistika is going to have framing options and color parameters. And raw clips, which we're going to see in a lesson later in these essentials, is going to have the raw parameters embedded in the clip here. Over here in transform, we would be able of zooming in the clip if we wanted to. Here we have a graphic where we could scale clips in pixels if we wanted to, or we could do this in percentage by changing the parameters. And if I want to double this, I could press type in 200, and I would type in 200 here as well. Okay, so this would be our parameters panel as well. Also, if we would also be able of applying keyframes if we wanted to. And in this case, I'm just going to activate the auto key and maybe here set 100 and set 100 here. and just, whoops. Obviously, I don't have this cut yet, and 200 over here. And we would have, sorry, not 20, 200. We would see it would be able to zoom in. And we would see that also if I press here in our bars, if I press this curve here, we would see the parameters panel. Okay, and I could also be able of changing the zoom factor here of my visual editor. Okay, so I could actually specifically see those time codes that I've added the keyframes in. Okay, also I can zoom out or zoom in inside my graph. Also, another option, obviously, as always in Mistika, is to navigate with the right button. Okay, so anyway, I'm going to reset this because what I want to do is see that in here, and I'm going to reset the view here as well. In Mistika, what I'm going to do is run the scene detection. Okay, and this is going to take a little while. It's 2 minutes, but it should be quite fast actually. You can see here the icon here. That is going to open the detect scenes. If you leave the mouse there for a few seconds, it will actually show the name of all the buttons here. Okay, the scopes, the different scopes that you can do, the display filters, and everything. If you consider this, sorry. So now I'm going to run a scene detection. Okay. I think it's going to be quick, but if anyone has any questions in these, well, it's going to be really quick. While this is happening, I'm happy to answer them.
Yeah, we have one question from Marcel saying that, are the demo footage grainy on purpose? Can we adjust that in one of the lessons?
It is on purpose.
Nice spot.
Nice spot. Nice spot. Yes.
I think Marcel gets a bonus point today.
Yeah. So yeah, it is on purpose because obviously I want to teach about denoising in Mistika, and also maybe using some of the plugins that Mistika you can use in Mistika. It could be a neat video, or it could be the new plugins that Mistika supports from Filmworks, which are great. So yeah, it is on purpose. The idea of all this is for you guys to finish these 4 lessons and actually go out there and say, hey, I can actually do a whole online in Mistika. Okay, so easy thing here is obviously here we define what cuts we want to make, and I'm actually going to be a bit more aggressive than I would normally, and say I want to cut these here, and actually press cut detected scenes. And if I go back to the timeline, you can see now that I have those clips now cut inside the Mistika timeline. I'm going to quickly take advantage of these clips being cut to actually show how the join works, just like in any other software. If there is a continuous time code here between 2 clips and you press join, Mistika will obviously understand that it has the same name, it is a continuous time code, it's the same clip, I will join them together. If, on the other hand, obviously there is 1 frame difference, in this case we're missing 1 frame, and I press join, it won't join them because obviously Mistika sees that there is a clip missing. Anyway, one thing that you could do in Mistika, obviously, if you really want to join these 2, let's say, for example, you have a corrupt frame there in the middle, is actually create a group, and that now would be represented as a group. Okay, so that is one reason I'm undoing everything I've done here. Okay, and that now we could see, I'm going to play this a little bit for a second so we could all see the footage. The reason why I wanted to give you this, oh, great, there. As you can see, Mistika here didn't see the dip to black. So actually over here, I define where I want to cut this. And as I'm right now with a red line, just exactly where I want the cut to happen, I go here to the active button and I can press split. But there is a faster way. If you press Control down, it would automatically do that for you with Global Razor. So you don't have to do any selections. Control down would do all cuts, like maybe in Resolve would be Control B. I think it's Control B, right? Yeah. And we'll do all the cuts. Okay. So we're going to be playing this for a second just to get an idea of what we're working with. And if we see, for example, here, I don't know if you're seeing this a lot. Well, we just saw there is another fade to black here. We're going to cut it. And suddenly here we can see that there's a few cuts here that maybe we were too aggressive when we defined it with the scene detect. I just have to select the two clips that I want to join and press join or the letter J, okay? And that will join them, okay? I hope you now had an idea a little bit of how to split clips with the detect scenes feature in Mistika, and how you could later on maybe take care of maybe some cuts that were too much, or we went too aggressive by dropping the line down, how you could check it in the timeline. Now, how we can navigate here in the timeline, we have the shuttle. And next here, the prev next. In prev next here, we could jump from the next edit point to the next edit point, okay? This is something that if you had the tangent panel or a precision panel, you could do with a panel as well. And obviously here in the shuttle, we would be able to play and move around, stop, or go to the beginning or go to the end, okay? In the visual editor, I'm just going to double click. We would be able of doing the same thing of going to the next clip by pressing these buttons here, okay? And you could also be able of playing something in the visual editor and stop it. And I'll also play it backwards as well, okay? Also, you can open the storyboard. So I'll open the storyboard here, and you could use Control right. Okay, for some reason, this hotkey isn't working for me right now. Okay, yeah, that's odd. Control. Okay, I have to double check that, but yeah. Control left or Control right should be able to make you navigate throughout the storyboard. Okay, so for some reason it's not reacting. Do I have? Okay, I'll double check that. I might have something wrong in my hotkeys.
Jeff says that you should click storyboard first, has to be in focus.
Yeah. Should be. Okay, I'll double check that, why it's not going on. I might have tapped with something. But anyway, going back to what we wanted to do here now is we want to add a color grade effect in Mistika. What we're going to do, we just need to select, in this case, all the clips, go to effects and apply the color grade, okay? So now in the color grade effect, okay, let's choose, let's go to this shot here. Just double click there and we will be able of playing with the color grade. tool. As you can see here, we have the parameters, and over here we are seeing the parameters of the clip. Before we were seeing here the parameters of, we're seeing here the parameters of the effect. Before we were seeing the parameters of the clip. So if I select the clip, we will be able to see the parameters of the clip. But if I select the color grade here in my Evo tree, in my tree here of the stack that I'm building, I can see the color grade. And it's here in the color grade now where I'll be able to work with different layers of color. I don't have to do everything in one color grade effect. Actually, I could add as many more, but to keep it tidy today, we're just going to use this color grade to do it. And inside the color grade, there are vectors. And in this case, obviously, the first vector is going to be what Mistika knows as vectors, is what in other systems would be layers. Okay, and in every layer, we're going to have a primary. So let me just maybe adjust the primary. For those that do not have a tangent panel, you can move the luminance here of the clip with the right button of the mouse, okay? For those that don't have control panels, remember the right button of the mouse will be controlling the luminance. And it would be the left button of the mouse that would be controlling the color of the trackball, okay? So over here, for example, let's adjust a little bit the gain. You can see here that I have some scopes over here, and I also have some scopes here with pivot points. We would learn a little bit more about this, and maybe this is one of the questions that we had before about the color science and how it works. We will look at, have a little look into this in future lessons of how we can change the pivot points for different type of projects. Obviously, we have lift, gamma, and gain, and we also have the option here of offset. This, what it will do, it was actually lock the lift and the gain trackballs to do exactly the same thing, okay? So actually you would be offsetting. In this case, I'm doing the luminance, but you could also do this, obviously, with the color of the trackball, okay? And in this case, if I wanna make this colder, okay, I'm adjusting the offset of the image by activating the offset option. I also have a contrast one. Maybe for the first layer, it isn't the tool to use with color, because you want to maybe do a duo color effect in a later layer. But obviously, to adjust the luminance contrast, it could be really good. Okay, so you could adjust the contrast here with the trackballs. Also, we have over here the printer steps. And in the printer steps, you could actually define here if you want to adjust the printer steps in offset, which is normally how it would behave, how printer steps would behave. It will actually just an offset tool. Okay, you could actually do all three channels or individually by R, G, or you could even do it for C, M, and Y. And then you also have the option of a manipulator that can change the temperature of the white just by manipulating the gain trackball by using the temperature and tint values just by modifying the gain. The reason really behind of all this thinking is to use the less number of operators as possible. The less number of operators and mathematical processes that you do to your image, the less you are working on the image, the less of transformations that you're doing, the less destructive it will be. Okay. Then we would have bands. With bands would be luminance discrimination of the input signal, and you would have black, shadow, midtones, highlights, and white point trackballs. Okay. So in case that if you wanted to, we could have shadows and maybe add a little bit of an S curve here. And also, just as well as we had in the primary, we had a saturation option here to saturate the colors. By the way, double clicking on the name will reset the color tools, okay? So just in case you were wondering, double clicking over the name will desaturate names. You also have the option of saturating here, for example, just the black point here, okay? So there we can see, we can increase the saturation of just the shadows here, or we could do it only, or change the hue of the highlights over there, okay? That is something that you could do in bands. You also have a dedicated panel for those operations if you wanted to. And then you also have here the ranges where you could define, and this exercise that I'm asking you to do is actually display referred grade. So you'll be completely doing a display referred grade here. So actually what you can see here is what you get in the final picture in your monitor. But here you could define exactly what ranges you are manipulating in the incoming image. If you're interested, you could actually choose the output result of what you're doing here. And you can see here how it defines. And you can see here there's also a curve here showing you exactly what you're doing in that operator. Then we have fixed factors. And in the fixed factors, we have hue, luminance, it's hue, saturation, and luminance sliders of the 3 primary colors and 3 secondary colors, red, green and blue, yellow, cyan, and magenta. And here we would be able of obviously modifying any of the clips that we are working on, okay, and just define what we would want to do. Interesting thing is that there are different visualization modes of this, and we have the hexagon mixer, where we have the hexagon, which is actually the same tool. It's a fixed factor, but actually we can work it with the hexagon. And we have obviously here the representation. I'm also going to show a second scope here so we could actually see here the result of the scope here. Okay, we could actually work in the saturation and hue of the colors in the hexagon, but also we can work with the luminance as well. Okay, so for example here I'm going to drop the luminance here of yellow just a tiny bit, and maybe 10 our chef here a little bit more. We also have a mixer where actually it's the same values of what we've manipulated before of the fixed sliders, okay? And it's just another way of how this tool is being represented. I would really recommend to play around with it and kind of get used to what it does. And then we have the curves panel. And in the curves panel, obviously we have the RGB curves, okay? If you want to add points, you can press here this button here, or you can press Alt while you left click. And for example, here we're doing a little bit of an S-curve. You also have the option of choosing points inside. Wait, sorry, I chose the wrong button here, and I reset it accidentally. Okay. You also have the option of adding 3 points by selecting a point in the image. Okay, and you can see here in hue versus hue. Now I have 3 points, and obviously I have that option. I also have the option of changing the saturation there if I wanted to, and work with that as well. And also it will apply it to hue and luminance, okay? So you have all these options. You have all these tools, and all these tools are in every new layer or vector that you add, okay? If you wanna add a vector, you just go to the layer tab here and press add, okay? So that is important. Anything you want to do, like insert maybe a new vector between two vectors or whatever, you could press insert. If you want to move the vectors around, you have move before, move after. It's all different things. If you want to duplicate a vector as well. Obviously, you don't need to use all these tools in a single vector. And normally how I do this, I'm going to reset this, is I tend to do primary grade, base grades in my first vector, okay? Maybe I did see it a bit green now, so try to offset a little bit the green tint that it had. I could add another vector here where I would start working with the bands and start working with the ranges and maybe starting to add a little bit of an S-curve. Something I forgot to say about bands, although we're going to look into this into more detail in the following class, is that it isn't working in RGB, it's working in luminance and chrominance separately. So it does behave different to the RGB trackballs of primary, okay? And if I add another vector here, I could go to maybe fixed vectors and start playing maybe with the hexagon and try to get a little bit of that more, I don't know, kind of sepia, kind of old film look there. And then come to the curves. And for example, here, what I'm going to do, just so you could see, add a shape over here. And with a shift and the middle button, I can actually open the softness here. And if I see here this button over here, I'm actually seeing the alpha channel, okay, of that shape that I've just done. And I can choose now to maybe do a grade inside. And if I choose here, click here, a grade outside, offsetting everything a little bit and doing a little bit of a vignette, okay? So that would be something that you could do, and you're doing this all from the same vector. We will look into a little bit more into this in the following classes, okay? And have a little bit more of what we can do here. I could see the chat is on fire. Are there any questions?
It is, Paco. You're missing so much.
Great.
Just kidding.
Let's go.
So I think we have one question from Rakesh from before. He was asking whether you can export a single clip. I think was that? Let me just. It's a lot of scroll. I'm sorry. Oh, sorry. It was a single frame from a clip. If you can export that.
You can export that two ways, several ways actually. There are many ways of doing it. For example, you could do it in, move one frame out and go to the output panel and export that frame. Or here's another cool one. Actually, you press Ctrl+C and everything you copy something, Mystica puts it in the source monitor. Okay, so it's in the clipboard. So maybe here you could look for something. Okay, go to the menu, and you could press Save Image, and that will save a DPX of the image, and it will save it in the output panel, in the output folder of the project. Okay. So now, if I go to, whoops, sorry, if I go to my media, home here, and go to the output folder, I could see
so I think
DPX.
that already Marcel was suggesting this solution in the chat. The question was whether it keeps the resolution.
In this case, it's going to be the project resolution, not the source resolution. No.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Do we have any other questions? Let me see. Yeah, we were speaking about Komodo support as well, because it seems that our development team is just updating a codec.
Yes, the Komodo support, actually, I've just been involved in a project that needed it, and we were given access to a beta. Sorry, guys. But yes, it's going to be followed in the next version. And I think there's other tools, right? Other codecs as well.
Mm-hmm.
So it'll be
great. I think we have a very good question from Yaroslav. He's asking, what are vectors comparing to nodes and layers? What are the similarities and differences?
Okay, so the reason why it's called nodes, the reason why it's called vectors in Mystica, it's actually really because in the time that this was developed, the qualifier kind of defines the vector that the vectors that we are working, just like in the vector scope, we could define the angle of colors that we're working in. Every vector, you could define an angle of colors that you're going to work on. Okay, so if I show here the alpha channel of this, this is the reason why it's called vectors. Okay, so we're defining an angle, a specific angle of the color wheel that we are applying our color grading tools on top. In practice, it's just like layers. It's just another way of calling this, of calling it. In this case, our developers, Mistika developers at the time, decided to go for a very accurate mathematical approach for the naming. Okay, so that is the reason why it's called vectors. But in practice, it is it's similar to a layer. But what is the difference with a node? In cases that in Mystica, okay, I can add another color grade effect. By the way, I just used a gesture, a mouse gesture to, I'm gonna actually draw it for you guys. Just like that, to add a color corrector, okay? Oops, no, delete it. So if you do that with the middle button of your mouse, you add a color corrector, just inverted C. You can add as many nodes as you want in your stack, okay? And actually, maybe something that we could look into in one of the next sessions is how some really big Mistika colorist really organize their workflow like this and use the first color grade as a pre-grade node, and this as just do the grades on the second node, and maybe base grade on the second node, and creative grade or anything or any LUTs on the third node. Okay, it's a way of organizing the timeline and defining a strategy of how things have to be. It's exactly that, okay? So every new node can have as many vectors as you want as well. So that is basically the differences. In reality, what is going on is that every new vector really behaves as a new RGB, as a new color grade node, but is contained within the color grade node. And actually something that we will look in other projects is that actually in the same node, I could go to vector number 5 and say recover inside, and even recover the source. And actually there, obviously, just maybe halve the grade that I had. Okay, so actually, if we could see here, see if I drop it like that, there. This would be actually half of the grade, and the way I did it is because I recovered the source clip in vector number 5. Okay, so it is obviously something that could give you very interesting things inside the color grade node.
If we change the project resolution, do vectors scale automatically? Asks Ben.
To vectors scale. Vectors won't be affected by the project resolution. No.
Okay.
No.
And then following on, Daniel is complaining that we drift away from the color tools, but we'll go back there. Then we have another vector and node referred question by Brandon. So what are performance differences between vector versus node workflow?
Generally now, and with the type of software and GPU tools that we have, almost nothing. Remember that in the time that Brendan and I worked at Sky, yeah, we didn't have so powerful GPUs, and actually the less amount of nodes you would use would be better. And now it's actually minimum. It's actually minimum.
Sounds great. And Ben is asking about the shapes inside the vector.
Yes, the shapes inside the vector. Obviously, we will look into this a lot more in the following lessons. But what, obviously, just to show this quickly, I can add one shape here, okay? And maybe let's just simulate that I want to track this. And I go here to my tracker. Oops. Sorry, guys. Go to the shape node over here, shape mode over here, and press go both ways, okay? And I track that. Okay, but hey, sorry, wrong button. I really want to add another shape. Pre-drawn, okay? And over here, and do this and see this, and we can see here how it behaves, okay? And actually, oops, sorry. And sorry, I just messed this up for a second. Sorry, guys. So you could have as many shapes as you want in each node, okay? And basically, if I add another node, another vector, sorry, and you can see that the shapes disappear, and I can add a line over here, add some softness. Sorry, guys, here. Okay, I can see it over here. Invert it. Go. You could see that it will disappear, but as soon as I go back to vector number 5, I have every vector has its own shapes, as you can see, and you can see that the numbering starts again from 1, and you can see it has its own tracking information and everything. Okay, and you can see here some of the tracking information as well. Okay, so that is something worth looking at. Okay, final thing. I really want you, I know there might be some questions, but before we leave, I really want you to be able to render something out with the practice footage that I've sent you. By the way, if you want to get rid of notes, just press delete all notes here and it will delete them. In this case, let's imagine that I'm going to export these clips over here. I select these clips, press U on my keyboard, and I set in and out points. And I go to the output panel. And over here, I have some presets already created. I guess you won't have presets created. But over here, I'm going to choose ProRes render. Okay, QuickTime Movie, ProRes. Let's go ProRes LT. We don't need to do anything larger. It has the default render names right now, and it's going to put it over here in the destination here. But if you want a user-defined one, go to the gear over here and press user-defined. And actually, I have here a drive for caching. I'm actually going to create a new folder, say, open, save this. You could say Mistika already creates what would be the wildcards or anything for the render. And here it's going to be the render name. Just say ICA day 1. You hit render. And Mistika automatically puts this clip on your timeline, okay? So you can automatically visualize if the render has been done correctly, okay? If I select the clip and go to attributes, we can see the information, and actually it rendered exactly what I told it to render, okay? And you can see the information there. You don't have to re-import it, or you don't have to do anything. And another cool thing of Mistika, although this is something that we will look in other moments, is that if I go to my render folder here, I actually have a log of the renders that I've been doing per project. A .cop first, which is exactly the same as the clip that was outputted, but a .rmd, which is actually a group. This is why I insisted a lot in groups earlier today, because groups are something very important in Mistika. This is a group of exactly what we rendered. So if you need to revisit it at some point, you could actually go to the R&D here. Okay, so that's it. And Mistika, colloquially between operators, is called render script. Okay, any other questions?
If you guys want to unmute yourself and just ask questions like this, that's also
yes.
fine. I think the other questions were answered because some people were asking if you can obviously rename the vectors and nodes like that.
Yes, you can. So Sylvester, just to quickly show you, I get there, double click there and say, this is base. And there you go. That's the name. The new
Easy
name.
enough.
Yeah.
So yeah, Rakesh wasn't sure if you can do the same with the node name. Can you rename nodes?
Yes, so that's a really great point. You could actually do it with anything in Mistika here. So, for example, in the previous option that I had before, okay, with three nodes, one on top of the other, you could go to the attributes here and say, this is my pre-grade, and let's just leave it as color grade. This one would be my base color grade. And this one, we could name it as creative color grade if you wanted to, okay?
Yeah, that's cool.
So you could have it tagged like this, and if you just copy and paste it on top, you could do that. We will show as well in following clips how to copy and paste complete stacks. Okay.
Wonderful.
So I really hope you guys have enough information today. It was really packed of information. I really wanted to insist in the beginning. I know that from my Colorist, we are really geared to Colorist, but I really want to talk about the color tools more in anger in the following sessions, okay? So that's something that we will look into, okay? Obviously, we will have to look as well how to conform, how to check a conform as well, and give you enough time to learn the essentials of Mistika. Perfect.
So Yaroslav is asking if there is any homework.
Any homework? Honestly, get the footage I've sent you. Practice. When we have the video, we will upload it and obviously let everyone know. And practice it again. Maybe I've spent a lot of time in the basics at the beginning, but I really think those basics are the things that you end up loving or hating Mistika. And actually, the reason why many Mistika ops and many of the big Mistika ops out there are here are exactly because of those tools. Play with them, fall in love with them, practice with them. And as long as you come to the next lesson next week and say, hey, I've been doing this, I've been playing with this, I'll be very happy with that. So there's really no homework. It's up to you.
That's
to
great.
Just practice and break the system if you want to.
Perfect. Also, Rakesh is asking if you'll tap into VR as well in these sessions.
I wasn't going to, but maybe what could be interesting is how to see a color grade, how to do a color grade in VR. That might be interesting to do. Let me work something out, and for other projects, we'll look into that.
There seems to be a lot of VR projects. We can definitely see something about that. If we don't do it during this course, we can always do a separate session. You know, at SGO. Just let us know if you want a session. We will organize it in 2 weeks. So that's not a problem. Great. So if there are no questions, I think we can call it here. It's been already 20 minutes past the hour. So
thanks, Tor. Thank you, everyone. Honestly, it's been amazing seeing people from all over the world connecting. It's 75 of you have spent here 2 hours with me. Honestly, I cannot be more grateful for this.
On a Friday night, Paco, on a Friday night for us.
I'm going to open a beer now. Great.
Okay, well, thank you all, also from my part. If you have any questions, or if you have any questions also during the week, please let us know. You have our email address. You can just write to marketing@sgo.es.
And Daniel, don't worry, we will deep dive into the color tools.
Absolutely, absolutely. That's what Mistika is all about, and we just needed to go through the basics to get there.
No,
and
I really wanted you guys to know how basic things work in the color grade tool, so you could maybe practice a little bit with the footage.
Awesome. Great. Let's call it here, and see you next week then.
See you, Brendan. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.